Boruto vs Kawaki is one of the hottest topics in manga right now, and essentially, when this brotherly feud ends, I'm confident it'll be up there with the greats. Naruto vs Sasuke, Goku vs Vegeta, Asta vs Yuno, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing a lot, but throughout these respective series, the power dynamics between these characters constantly shifted. The truth is, one character did not significantly dominate the other in terms of fighting ability. There were times when one character was stronger than the other, and vice versa. But when we look at Boruto and Kawaki, at what point did they become stronger than one another? Who was really stronger for a longer period of time? Well, we're about to find out. We're about to really see the truth between these two characters. I watched every episode of Boruto and every chapter up to this point, and how I see the series may be a little bit different than how you or someone else sees it. I'm just gonna call things how I interpret it. So if you agree or disagree on anything I'm about to say, go ahead and drop a comment down below so we can start a real discussion. But anyway, let's go ahead and hop into it. So Kawaki was first introduced into the story in chapter 24, so that's where we're gonna start this analysis. And we're gonna work our way up to chapter 34 of Blue Vortex. And I'm not gonna mention any filler or anime canon, even though it would be pretty interesting, I'm not gonna lie, because that high compression Rasengan was just insane. But yeah, I'm not really gonna include no extra content, I'll just keep it strictly manga canon focused for now. But yeah, during their first encounter, Kawaki showed great strength versus Garo. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, but yeah, Garo, who was a regular Kara outer, who Kawaki actually fought before and managed to disorientate his face. So that's why he got this Bane look going on here. But during this fight, Kawaki wasn't really at full strength, so you can say that it is a bit unfair to actually gauge his power against Boruto at this specific point in time, but the patterns he shows in this fight is extremely consistent to what he would continue to show throughout the foreseeable future. Just going base for base, Kawaki has shown great agility and battle IQ for someone who really had no prior shinobi training per se. He kinda uses his own unique approach to fighting. He's just a way more physical and hands-on fighter than Boruto ever was. Like I said, Kawaki is not a shinobi and he never will fight like one. So just saying, oh, Boruto is stronger because he was trained to be a shinobi and Kawaki wasn't, is not really a valid argument if you think about it. Although it's true, you can probably use that argument right now, but later on in the story that argument becomes more meaningless because of how strong he gets using that style of combat. So against Garo, Kawaki knows how to make use of his scientific ninja body to use on defense and offense. But in base, it's clear that he just can't hang with the rest of them. And this always been my gripe with Kawaki as a fighter. He's insanely talented, but his lack of versatility in base puts a cap on his potential. And honestly, this is where Boruto might have the slight advantage over him at this point. Because prior to this fight, Boruto probably just had his most impressive battle as of yet, fighting Ao, who mind you, was a Jonin level shinobi who was also one of the Mizukage's top bodyguards and a highly respected sensory shinobi. So against him, Boruto really displayed his shinobi tactics and fighting ability that I just don't believe Kawaki could keep up with. Constantly catching him off guard using shadow clones, substitution, and other ninjutsu, and also slamming him with a Rasengan to incapacitate him. So if this caught a seasoned former shinobi off guard against Kawaki, who didn't have any training or knowledge on these shinobi tactics, I think Boruto would win at this point in time. But when we're talking about the use of karma, things get a little bit more complicated, because now it's not necessarily about tactics anymore, it's really all about raw power. Because the amp that Kawaki gets with the karma is just too great for Boruto to handle at this point. With Kawaki having all the extensive training on how to use the karma and his power like absorbing jutsu, being able to output these insanely powerful blasts, just things that Boruto would not know how to perform, Kawaki would wipe the floor with Boruto. Yes, while Boruto did absorb one of Kawaki's attacks instinctively, these are widely known as flukes that can't really be replicated in a real life battle. So at the very start of their encounter, Boruto beats Kawaki going base for base, but once karma activates, I think Kawaki will end up taking the W, and pretty convincingly at that. On the side note, I don't think the manga did this fight justice. This is one of the few moments where I think the anime nailed this moment a bit better, because it really showed off the true extent of the karma's power. And if you watch the anime, you know what I'm talking about. But next I'm going to skip to the karma training arc. This is mainly where Boruto just learns what karma is and what it does to his body, but he never really learns how to use it or its abilities on command without the aid of Kawaki. And while he's doing this, Kawaki is learning more about shinobi, mastering his chakra control, ninjutsu, and ninja tactics. Now that Naruto has taken Kawaki under his wing, I would say that the gap between Boruto and Kawaki in base definitely decreased, while the gap between them in their karma states probably stayed a bit stagnant. I would lean more towards them being pretty even in terms of fighting ability. I still give Boruto the slight edge in base form though, but it is getting closer than you'd think. But overall, nothing really crazy noticeable to where I would want to confidently put one over the other. Where I would say the tide really starts to shift was during the Boro fight. I would easily say Boruto has shown the most growth here, specifically with his karma seal, because this was the first time we really seen Boruto using the karma more, by absorbing jutsu and using the karma in a real battle to amp his already superior abilities like the Rasengan. So think about it like this: while Kawaki is learning more about shinobi and how to control his chakra to perform different ninjutsu like the Shadow Clone Jutsu or Fire Style, Boruto is doing the same thing, but for karma. So in real time, they're strengthening their weaknesses and building on what they were already good at, but now it's becoming more noticeable to the general masses. So I would say this is the most evenly matched Boruto and Kawaki have ever been up to this point. So now I can no longer use Kawaki's inexposure to ninja tactics as a talking point, and I can't use Boruto's inexperience to the karma seal either, because he's actively getting better at using it. And in a battle against each other, Kawaki would just aid Boruto because of resonance. And him becoming more adept to the karma, I'd probably say it's an even battle. Maybe Boruto gets the slight edge if you overvalue Boruto's superior shinobi tactics, along with the karma's power amp he gets to his physical attributes and jutsu. But for right now, it's really close. Now, we don't really see any significant changes from these two until after the battle versus Ishiki. Now at this point, Kawaki doesn't have karma anymore due to Ishiki's death. Even though he's not as broken as before, he's still a pretty good adversary. He still makes good use of his body. He even makes use of shadow clones too. So his shinobi tactics have gotten way better, which goes into his base form. And with one move, he almost injured Sarada critically, someone who'd been training all her life. But that doesn't necessarily apply to Boruto, because he more than held his own against Kawaki in this fight. But at the same time, Kawaki has shown that he's well adapted to the fighting style of the shinobi. So in short, Kawaki gotten stronger in base, strong enough to hold his own against base Boruto. But like I said earlier, Kawaki just doesn't have karma while Boruto does. And Boruto's control over the karma has gotten way better than before. Now he's able to use it in battle on command, and he can absorb ninjutsu a bit better than before, without Kawaki's aid I might add. So this gives Boruto the edge, undoubtedly. But Kawaki's base is on par with Boruto's, I will say that. And of course this would remain the same until the code fight when Kawaki inevitably gets his karma back. And this is when Kawaki just dominates. I mean, I'm pretty sure we can all agree he's the strongest in Konoha. He was on par with Momoshiki, and you can argue a bit stronger, but their fight was unfortunately interrupted by Boruto waking up, so that of course leaves more to be desired. But against Code, he completely overpowered him. Boruto did as well when he was in full control of Momoshiki's power, but it's clear Kawaki is on a whole nother level, just based off his battle with Momoshiki alone. Code really had no way of contending with his power, because at this point, he was able to perform Sukune Hikona along with Daikokuten. So Kawaki is undoubtedly stronger than Boruto by the end of chapter 67. But moving on from that, now we move towards the end of part 1, and I can confidently say Kawaki dominates most of these battles. They did have a battle after Kawaki sealed Naruto, and in this fight, Kawaki has fully adapted to Boruto's tricks and fighting ability, even with karma activated. And Boruto has fully adapted and improved his use of karma, So neither of these two have an advantage over each other when it comes to just experience alone. But like I said, ever since Kawaki got his karma back, he is just too strong. If Sarada did not intervene in this battle, Kawaki wins. There probably isn't any future where Boruto wins here. Later in the series, even Kashin Koji said that there was a future where Kawaki unalived both Boruto and Sarada. So that should just tell you right there, nobody is really contending with Kawaki. And part 1 will end with Kawaki being the strongest character in Konoha, excluding Damon. Now here we enter to Blue Vortex, and from here it's really straightforward, nothing really complicated about it. Now opening up to chapter 1, Boruto is the stronger between the two. At this point, Boruto has been training his base mode nearly 3 times as much as everyone else. He's trained so much that even he questioned if Kawaki has even trained at all, followed by a statement from Delta who questions Boruto how much did he train, implying that Kawaki isn't weak, Boruto is just too strong it feels like Kawaki is weak. While both statements can be true, because I definitely feel like Kawaki did not train at all, Boruto has massively outtrained everyone in this entire village, and that resulted in him lapping the likes of Kawaki and Code, even with their karmas activated. I mean, you can even see, Boruto was dropping claw grimes left and right, while Kawaki struggled with even one, and his showings against the shinju were pretty good. I hope you know, if Kawaki was in place of Boruto right here, he probably dies, easily. Like, I'm not even joking. So, diving into it a little bit deeper, we know Boruto laps Kawaki in base several times over, but we really don't see him with karma until later on in the series against Mamushi. And I'll just say, if Boruto was allowed to use karma, he would still win. But that's towards the first part of Blue Vortex. As we continue, Kawaki doesn't get another major power buff until chapter 23. This is when he gets his limiters removed and he pulls up on Jura. Now the tide starts to shift a bit. Most people would say that this is where Kawaki lapped Boruto in terms of raw power, but I don't think it's that straightforward. We do see Boruto fight Juro while in base, and of course he loses, bad, but we never see him fight Juro with karma, so we don't necessarily know how he would perform, and it is hard to say he would do better than how Kawaki did, because Kawaki was really impressive. So just off that, most people would just say Kawaki is stronger, and I'd argue he is. For the most part, Kawaki was always superior when it comes to his use of karma, so it would not surprise me at all if Kawaki lapped Boruto with karma. And personally, I think he did, just from the statements about the karma and Kawaki's limiters. He told Amato he wanted to be stronger past all limits. Simply put, Amato put all his defensive enhancements towards his offense. And now this is all good and dandy until you realize that even Kawaki's body can't uphold his power. The more power he outputs, the more likely he is to overheat. So if the fight between Jura and Kawaki went the distance, Kawaki would get turned into macaroni. And I think this would happen if he was to fight Boruto. But not at this moment because Boruto still couldn't use the karma. So this is what I will say. Kawaki has the edge over Boruto. Yes, Kawaki is stronger, but it's short-lived because as soon as Boruto made that deal with Momoshiki, he became stronger than Kawaki. And it's not because Boruto is just clearly stronger than Kawaki while using the karma, it's just that Kawaki's body literally cannot handle the power of his karma. So eventually he will overheat, leaving him extremely vulnerable to any attack that Boruto throws at him. So currently in the story, Boruto is stronger. But if Kawaki somehow finds a way to manage his power output so he doesn't fry his body, then I think he stands more of a chance. But due to Boruto's advanced use of his new techniques like the Flying Raijin, in combination of other techniques, he'll probably win most fights until Kawaki just outright laps Boruto in pure strength, like Jura did in chapter 23. I don't see that happening naturally though, so it might take some sort of power enhancement through him absorbing chakra, maybe eating a thorn soul or whatever. But that's pretty much it for them. As the story goes on, I may update it, especially if I see something that really puts one over the top. But until then, this is where I will conclude it. Let me know your thoughts on where Boruto and Kawaki ranked against each other in the series. Does one significantly dominate the other, or do you think it stayed relatively consistent throughout the series? And as always, if you enjoyed the video, and don't mind seeing more like this in the near future, go ahead and like the video, comment, subscribe, and turn on them post notifications so you know whenever I upload or go live for chapter spoilers. And until next time, I'll see you boys and girls later. And I'm out. Peace.